Hey friends, this is JB presenting wisdom to you. And today we are moving along in Ecclesiastes. And what I learned about Ecclesiastes is that's Greek for the original Hebrew word, which was congregation, the congregation. So Ecclesiastes sort of means the congregation. And the preacher that we are talking about is Solomon. At least we're pretty sure it's Solomon. There's a few people who argue that it's not, or that it couldn't be, but it seems to fit well. And in an essence, as I was reading some of the information about the book as a whole on one of my study Bibles, I learned that Ecclesiastes is essentially sort of a look at the folly of life without God as we try to please ourselves. And it does fit well with Solomon because another thing I learned, let me back up. Another thing I learned was that Songs of Solomon was probably written first. The Proverbs of Solomon were written second. In Ecclesiastes, the congregation, if you will, was written third. Later in life, though, not concurrently, but later in life. And as you see read some of the folly of Solomon and how he sinned himself, being strayed away with his various wives who have various gods that are not true God, right? And he essentially is starting to see the fruitlessness of trying to pursue your own glory and fame that cannot really be attained without God, without Christ, really. And so this is the challenge for us as we continue this journey. This can be a little bit of a downer if we don't understand the context of this book, okay? Because we're going to read a lot of things and it's going to talk about the fruitlessness of doing anything. One can feel even probably depressed, okay? So I wanted to dive into the front of this chapter. I felt that this was where it was going. The folly of, I mean, we can toil and we must, but the thing of it is as we toil for our own purposes, that it simply does not fulfill. It doesn't satisfy. It never satisfies. What satisfies is God. What satisfies is doing it for God's glory. And on the flip side, yeah, it's expected of us to toil. Really, ever since Adam in the fall, the expectation was to toil, to get out there in the field, toil, to work, to be industrious. And in some ways, it's a gift. It's a gift because without God, we've got to keep ourselves busy. And there's other reasons, I suppose. But the point being is that this is something that we have to do. So if we do it, though, to attain a pleasure, that could be a problem. Being unsatisfied. And there's a lot of people out there who wouldn't be considered upper class or rich. If you're in America, you would be rich compared to everyone else in the world. But the point is that even in America, it's sort of like a contrast. Who has more in comparison to the general population? And the point where I'm going with that is that if you see these people in that upper crust, whatever we want to call that, a lot of them will end with regrets. They'll end with unsatisfied desires. You'll see a lot of people who are in Hollywood. Many of them turn to drugs, women, alcohol, women turn to men, and now they're confusing each other. They don't know who to turn to, and then they turn to their own sexes. And it just doesn't truly satisfy. So if the expectation is to make a lot of money and that's going to solve all of your problems, it could bring you into bigger problems. We've got to be a bit thankful for what we have. I think industrious that God's given us strengths and he's given us power to really take our strengths and develop them, okay, with what he's given us, and also to do it unto his glory. And when we do that, isn't that such a great feeling when you're doing it for God and you're like, hey, look, I mean, I knocked this out. I did this, made this thing excellent. Okay, maybe I don't know, maybe I made a fine bottle of wine. Maybe I crafted a sculpture. I'm an artist. I crafted this painting. Maybe I'm in the IT business and I made this program. But you're doing it unto God, and you're like, look, Lord, I give this to you. This is your glory. I wrote a book and I dedicated it to Jesus. I'm like, this is the thing. This book took a lot of energy. It was exciting. There was a lot of work. There was a lot of fun, but then there's a lot of not fun parts, the editing. And when you do it to God, unto God, then there's a great satisfaction that, it's like a gift. It's like you're giving the gift back to God. And so is something missing here in Ecclesiastes. So let's go through this. And the vanity of self-indulgence. This guy has done it all. Okay? This guy has done it all. So let's see here. And not mess with that too much. And get back into the vanity of self-indulgence. I said in my heart, come now, I will test you with pleasure. Enjoy yourself. But behold, this was also vanity. I said laughter. I said of laughter, it is mad, and of pleasure, what use is it? I search with my heart how to cheer my body with wine. My heart still guiding me with wisdom, and how to lay hold on folly, till I might see what was good for the children of man to do under heaven during the few days of their life. That's a big mouthful right there. Let's break that down a little bit. I search with my heart how to cheer my body with wine. So he's trying to think to himself, maybe I can just drink wine and really lift myself up, and on a more than a permanent basis. Then he gets into my heart still guiding me with wisdom. So it's like a poem of sorts. It's like, here's how could he cheer my body with wine, but then he's realizing that that's not still guiding with wisdom. What I'm getting out of that, perhaps he's thinking that that's really just a temporary thing. If it's one thing to have a glass of wine or two, or to have a feast or whatever, but the point is that it's temporary. And how to lay hold on folly. So basically, let me skip to this middle part here. How to cheer my body with wine, and how to lay hold on folly. So then he's thinking like, this little part in the middle, he's still got wisdom in his heart, but he wants to see how can he alleviate his pain or struggle and to bring himself up. So it's kind of like, I search my heart how to cheer my body with wine, and how to lay hold on folly, till I might see what was good for the children of man to do under heaven during the few days of their life. So the children do these foolish things, essentially. And his idea is to, how do I basically act like a child and do foolish things that they would do during the few days of their life, which they do. But yet his heart is still guiding him with wisdom. So it's like almost he knows that this is not going to get him anywhere. I made great works. I built houses and planted vineyards for myself. I made myself gardens and parks and planted in them all kinds of fruit trees. And this is an honorable, industrious thing to do. Right? To to develop and to produce. Okay? But if it's unto God only. I made myself pools. So he made pools. And a pool back then, that would have been some doing. Now they've got backhoes and they've got all sorts of ways to make pools these days, but back then that would have been big doing. From which to water the forest of growing trees. So he's even using irrigation techniques. I bought male and female slaves and had slaves who were born in my house. So he's even done even another great sin. This is like almost a catalog of sins in some ways, because if you're not doing it to God, you're really doing it unto yourself, making yourself an idol. And here he's bringing slaves. He is entrapping other people. Different probably from the U.S. slave trade, for sure, but nonetheless. I also had great possessions of herds and flocks, more than any who had been before me in Jerusalem. So at his disposal he had all of this, all of this valuation, meaning the value of all of these flocks would allow him to do just so many things, because it's like trade. I also gathered for myself silver and gold, and the treasure of kings and provinces. I got singers, both men and women, and many concubines. This is another sin, is sexual sin. Keeps pouring out. The delight of the sons of man. It's not only, and the fact that he elevates it above all is another way he's trying to justify it right here within this almost confession. So he's like talking about how he would even justify it, possibly even still justifying it, or and it's tricky because he's not justifying it, but he's almost, he's showing this other level of, it's not just any women too, it's the best that men would esteem to, so that he esteems himself that much more. Crazy, huh? So I became great and surpassed all who were before me in Jerusalem. That's what he thinks is great. That's his vision of greatness, all this above. And also my wisdom remained with me. There's some contrast. There's some dissonance, rather. There's a problem with this statement. I became great and surpassed all who were before me with this, and also wisdom remained with me. So it's as if he kept on doing all these things and his wisdom was telling him it's folly. And wherever my eyes desired, I did not keep from them. That doesn't seem wise. The desires of your heart are often filled with sin. And so the wisdom remained with him to a small degree, it sounds like. I keep my heart from no pleasure, for my heart found pleasure in all my toil. And this was my reward for all my toil. Then I considered all that my hands had done, and the toil I had expended in doing it. And behold, all was vanity, and a striving after wind. And there was nothing to be gained under the sun. So he comes to a reconciliation, a realization of what he was actually accomplishing. And it was really nothing. He's gone. He's gone. We really don't have a strong record of a lot of these guys back then. I mean, we have what's in the Bible, and that's huge. Don't get me wrong. But we don't have a great deal of things that stood the test of time besides the Word. Besides the wisdom that God saw fit to include, encapsulate in this great book that we call the Holy Bible. But besides that, then these are lessons for us. So in that way, there is this legacy, but there's nothing else besides this legacy. The wisdom that he had was to write down his foolishness and his thinking, his thinking of what he defined as great. And I think that what he realizes that when he says this is that he was great in other people's eyes, but the wisdom that he did have, although he kept on not using it, you can see, because he's doing all these things. Okay, he didn't stop it, but he had enough to self-reflect, which is huge, to be able to look inward, to be able to acknowledge it. But he didn't have the wisdom to repent. I don't know how things went after all of his life, like towards the end. Did that wisdom finally catch up with him, and did he repent? I don't know. We're going to have to find out. But we're going to find out more day by day as we keep pouring into wisdom. The vanity of self-indulgences, my friends. Get wisdom. Get it now, and let's do this.